During a live television broadcast, an electrifying moment unfolded as Whoopi Goldberg presented President Ibrahim Traoré with an audacious and unforeseen question. While viewers braced for a tense exchange, the subsequent events left the entire studio audience mesmerized. President Traoré's calm, yet profoundly resonant response cast a spell of silence over the room, leaving even Whoopi visibly affected. This remarkable dialogue stands as a powerful example of integrity, lucidity, and the emotional resonance of true leadership. The studio was aglow with intense lighting. The cameras were active, and the air buzzed with an expectant energy. It was a special broadcast of the show, and the room was filled to capacity. President Ibrahim Traoré, the transitional leader of Burkina Faso, sat with quiet dignity across from Whoopi Goldberg. The ambience was one of respect, yet it was heavy with an unspoken curiosity. Abruptly, Whoopi leaned forward, her voice becoming low and earnest. "Mr. President," she inquired, "has there ever been a time when you've questioned whether simply being a decent human being could truly change anything in this world?" The studio went still. This question wasn't about policy. It hadn't been pre-screened. It was entirely off-script. A brief quiet followed, too short to be overt, but too long to be ignored. Everyone prepared for a confrontation. Yet, Ibrahim Traoré remained perfectly composed. His gaze was steady. He made no motion to consult his aides. His eyes met hers directly. And then, in a soft voice, he answered, "Yes," he continued, "many times." A profound silence fell over the room. Even Whoopi seemed taken aback, leaning back in her chair. It was not the reply anyone had anticipated. But his next words would captivate the studio and leave a lasting impression on millions. The instant I uttered the word yes, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. Whoopi blinked in surprise. "You have?" she asked. "I have," he affirmed. "Most especially when I was just a boy." Now, every person was intently listening. "I was raised on a simple dirt road in Bandicoot. My mother earned a living selling roasted corn on the roadside. She would journey 2 miles on foot to get water so that we could have one clean bath before attending school." He took a brief pause. "One afternoon, I watched her offer her very last portion of food to a complete stranger. I was upset. I demanded to know why she would do such a thing. A faint smile touched his lips. She told me, because the world can be a harsh place. But that doesn't mean we have to be harsh in return." The audience was utterly still. Whoopi herself was clearly moved. "I questioned if that kindness had any real meaning," Ibrahim went on, "but that memory came back to me when I faced difficult decisions as a leader, whether to respond with animosity or to guide with compassion." Whoopi reached for her water glass, her hand showing a slight tremor. In that single moment, the entire dynamic of the interview shifted. This was no longer a discussion of politics. It had become an exploration of a man's soul. The producers began signaling that the segment's time was nearly exhausted, but Whoopi waved them away. She leaned forward once more, her tone even softer than before. "You talk about compassion, but what do you do when the world itself shows none?" Ibrahim took a slow breath and looked upward. "There is a conflict we fail to discuss with enough urgency," he stated. "It isn't only about firearms and bloodshed. It is the war against forgotten people." He then shared a story of a small village. In the northern region, isolated by conflict and deprived of medicine for weeks, he had gone there himself. The roads were impassable due to flooding, preventing aid from reaching them. It was there he encountered a young girl named Rasmata, no older than 7. She was suffering from malaria. Her father was desperately digging up roots to brew a tea, praying it would save her. "I gave him my word I would bring help. I sent my personal convoy back for her. She made it." His voice faltered for a moment. "She sends me letters now. Each one concludes with the words, 'Do not forget us.'" A single tear traced a path down Whoopi's cheek. The camera captured the moment before she quickly wiped it away. The studio was enveloped in a reverent hush. At that instant, millions of viewers across the globe drew closer, not just to listen to a president, but to bear witness to the unvarnished truth of a man who shoulders more than just the weight of power. He shoulders stories. He shoulders lives. The audience remained silent as Ibrahim carefully adjusted the small Burkinabe flag pinned to his lapel. "I wear this flag," he stated softly, but there's a scar beneath it. Whoopi's eyebrows rose in curiosity. He went on, "There was a time when I nearly surrendered. It was during my first month in office. A young boy, maybe 10 years old, made his way through a crowd to present me with a drawing." He paused. It depicted his family, 5 individuals, all of whom were gone, lost in the turmoil before the transition. He had drawn himself standing alone in a corner, with a small Burkina flag flying above him. The tension in the studio became palpable. I asked him, "Why did you include the flag?" The boy replied, "Because I haven't lost hope." Whoopi brought a hand to her mouth. A few quiet gasps could be heard from the crew members behind the cameras. "That day," Traoré said, "I sat by myself in my room for hours. I didn't say a word. I didn't eat. I simply gazed at that drawing." He reached inside his jacket and carefully unfolded a creased piece of paper, and there it was, the drawing itself. Tears streamed freely down Whoopi's face as she whispered, "Oh my goodness." And in that moment, everyone understood this was not merely a man on a television program. This was a man carrying the collective sorrow of a nation. "3 days ago," Traoré said quietly, "we lost a bakery." Whoopi blinked, looking puzzled. "A bakery?" He nodded. "Yes, just a small family-operated one in Wahiguya. They provided morning bread for 3 local villages." He looked down for a moment. A stray mortar from a rebel assault struck it just as the bakers were preparing the initial batch of loaves. He paused again. No one survived. A chill permeated the room. Traoré's voice grew softer. The following morning, people still came to the site of the bakery, not to purchase bread, but to offer prayers, to place flowers, and to comfort one another. Whoopi's eyes filled with tears again. "I have dispatched someone to have it rebuilt, not because bread can mend the wounds of war, but because preserving dignity can. We cannot allow people to lose their faith in the simple grace of mourning." Bread. A long, profound silence followed. Then, applause began to ripple through the audience. It wasn't loud or boisterous, but slow, measured, and deeply emotional. Whoopi said nothing at all. She simply extended her hand across the table and lightly touched his. And for the first time during the interview, Traoré's voice broke. "I do not wish to be remembered for holding power," he whispered. "I wish to be remembered for having tried." The cameras documented a moment that transcended words, conveyed through a simple touch, a story, and the shared silence. That evening, after the interview concluded, Ibrahim went back to his hotel suite in Manhattan. He didn't switch on any lights. He took a seat by the window and opened a letter he had been carrying with him for 2 days. It was written by hand in French from the wife of a soldier in Kaya. It said, "He was killed while helping school children get across a road during an ambush. I do not hold the war responsible. I hold the silence responsible. I hold the world for looking away. But I thank you, Mr. President, for not forgetting him." Ibrahim shut his eyes. Then he took out his phone and sent a text to his chief of staff. "Locate her. Bring her to Ouagadougou. She has earned the right to be heard." Back in the United States, Whoopi sat in her dressing room, gazing at the old drawing Ibrahim had entrusted to her. With trembling hands and quiet tears, she whispered, "He isn't just trying to reform a country. He's trying to heal it." By the next morning, social media was ablaze. Segments from the show were circulating everywhere. The phrase "the boy and the flag" was trending across the globe. But none of them knew what was about to unfold, because the world had only glimpsed the surface, and the most profound wound was yet to be exposed. It was intended to be the show's concluding segment. The cameras had been recording for more than 40 minutes. Whoopi shuffled her note cards, glanced toward the producers, and then looked back at Ibrahim Traoré. Then, she did something entirely unforeseen. She pushed her cards to the side and leaned forward. "Mr. President," she began deliberately, "when was the last time you truly wept?" The studio fell silent. Even Traoré seemed momentarily stunned, not by the question's audacity, but by the flood of memories it triggered. He offered a faint smile. "I cry more than people might imagine," he started, but the most recent time, he looked down. "Was 4 days ago, in Kaya, I met a young girl named Awa. She lost both of her parents in an attack. She resides with her grandmother now." He took a steadying breath. "She didn't request food or money from me. She requested a school desk." Whoopi's eyes shimmered with unshed tears again. Traoré added, She told me, if I have to sit on the floor forever, my dreams might forget how to get up. A collective sigh moved through the room. No one dared to make a sound. I had to turn away before she could see my face, he said. But that night, Ibrahim looked up a president on a stage. Yet in that moment, he was simply a man with a promise in his heart and a deep sorrow in his soul. And that sorrow was about to be brought into the light. At 3:12 in the morning, Ibrahim's phone vibrated. The caller was Soulmane. He hadn't spoken to him in months. Traoré moved away from his sleeping delegation in the hotel suite and answered in a low voice. Soulmane. A long pause followed. Then, a trembling voice on the other end. Ibrahim. They've found his pack. Traoré's heart plummeted. The boy no, just his pack, in a village near Pama. There's blood on the strap. Ibrahim closed his eyes, forcing his breathing to remain steady. I am on my way, he said, but you are still in New York. I will depart tonight. The line went silent for a moment. Soulmane whispered, the word is that the rebels crossed into a gold mine, using children to do the digging. He might be there. Ibrahim clenched his hand into a fist. He had heard these rumors as well, children, forced to work in mines by armed factions. It was a horror no one wanted to confront. We will find him, Ibrahim stated with resolve. Even if I must dig for him with my own hands, he ended the call and stared out the window at the sleeping city. The television interview had moved the world, but this had now become deeply personal. And an event was about to transpire that would transform his private anguish into a global appeal for action. By morning, Whoopi had been informed Ibrahim had not appeared for the second scheduled interview, which was meant as a follow-up. Her staff told her he had departed at dawn, flying directly to Pama. She sat by herself in the green room, looking through her notes, his voice replaying in her mind. Then she did something highly unusual. She started a live broadcast on her personal Instagram account. Her voice was thick with emotion as she spoke. President Ibrahim Traoré has just left New York, not for political reasons, not for media appearances, but to pursue the faint hope of a boy who might still be alive. He is not doing this for any cameras. He is doing this because this boy's father is his spiritual brother. Her eyes filled with tears. This is the type of leader we hope for, the kind who ventures into the darkness when it matters most, who does not forget the names of those who are lost. Then she delivered the sentence that ignited the internet. Whether that boy is found alive or not, I will fly to Burkina Faso myself and sit with that family. The world was watching, and in under 4 hours, the hashtag #FindHim was trending worldwide. But while the world joined the search with messages, Ibrahim was already far into the wilderness. Tracing footprints in the dust, it required 2 helicopters, 5 all-terrain vehicles, and a single broken promise to arrive at the edge of the old gold mine. The air was heavy with a silence, so profound it felt more deafening than any sound of war. Ibrahim emerged from a vehicle in casual attire, no suit, no media, just a father's determination walking into the unknown. Soulmane was there to meet him, his eyes hollow, his shirt soaked with perspiration. They evacuated last night, he said. Miners confirmed children were here, but they have been moved. Ibrahim didn't answer. He walked directly toward the mine entrance. No flashlight, just the light from his phone. The farther he ventured in, the more etchings he noticed. Names carved into the stone by small hands. And then he saw it. A little red backpack, torn, caked in dust, and stained. Soulmane collapsed to the ground. Ibrahim lifted the backpack with care, handling it as if it were made of fragile glass. Inside, he found a pencil, a piece of hard candy, and a folded paper drawing of 2 boys holding a Burkinade flag. The world had just witnessed their president speak with eloquence on a global stage. But now, deep within a desolate mine, that same man fell to his knees and whispered, "You are not just a child of this nation. You are a piece of my own soul." And he remained there, praying that the silence would answer him, just as the sun began to set. As Ibrahim sat near the mine's entrance with the child's red backpack held tightly to his chest, a voice called out to him. It was faint, but insistent. "Mr. President!" He looked up. A woman was approaching him, frail and barefoot, a vibrant red scarf covering her head. Her eyes were puffy from crying. "I saw them," she said, Soulmane, hurried to her side. "Who?" "The boys, about 10 of them, 3 nights ago. They were being forced onto trucks. They were terrified. One of the boys was limping. She retrieved something from inside her blouse, a small bracelet woven from colorful beads. Solmain gasped. "That belongs to my son." Ibrahim stood, stunned. "Where did they go?" he asked. The woman pointed to the west, toward the old Saba, crossing a perilous route known to be used by gold smugglers. "No one travels that way now. Too many bandits," she warned. But Ibrahim was already turning toward the vehicles. "We are going," he said, immediately. The team quickly mobilized. That night, they would gamble everything. No military escort, no public statement, no rest, just a convoy fueled by hope, driving toward an unknown fate. And the entire world would soon be watching. The jungle path was scarcely a road. Thorns scraped against the metal of the trucks. Branches snapped against the windshields. The tires jolted over stones as if the land itself were trying to force them back. In the lead vehicle, Ibrahim stared. Straight ahead, his thoughts consumed by the woman's words. A smile with a single crooked tooth, a face he knew only from Solmain's photographs. Every jolt of the truck brought that image into sharper focus. The silence in the vehicle was immense. "Mr. President, what if they have been moved again?" Ibrahim's gaze didn't waver. "Then we will continue to move." Another jolt. The driver of the second truck had seen something. A scarf snagged on a tree branch. Ibrahim moved with more deliberation, surveying the surroundings. Then he heard a faint cough, a child's cough. He turned. From behind a large fallen tree, a tiny hand emerged, and in that moment, everything went still. Even the birds fell silent. They had found them. 9 boys were huddled together under a crude lean-to made of branches and canvas, concealed behind thorn bushes. They were filthy, starved, and trembling, but they were alive, and among them was Solmain's son. His leg was bruised and his voice was weak, but when he saw Ibrahim, he whispered something that broke the heart of everyone present. "Did my father send you?" Ibrahim knelt down, tears streaming down his face. "No," he said, his voice shaking. "He did not send me. I came because I promised him I would bring you home." The boy threw his arms around Traoré's neck and began to sob. They provided the children with water, wrapped them in jackets, and gently carried them to the trucks. Ibrahim sat with the boy in his lap for the entire journey back. There was no media, no public announcement, just a leader focused on what was most important. When the convoy arrived in the town of Kina, the villagers lined the streets, not to celebrate, but to weep. There were no speeches, no triumphant displays, only a quiet, overwhelming sense of gratitude. And somewhere in the distance, Whoopi Goldberg's plane touched down at the airport. There were no wailing sirens, no police escort, just the emerging light of dawn and the hope it represented. The moment the truck doors swung open and his son stepped out, every person watching was frozen in place. Father and son rushed toward each other, their reunion expressed in tears long before any words were spoken. They sank to the ground in an embrace so profound it seemed they might merge into one being. Ibrahim stood beside them, a silent witness. No one cheered, they wept. A woman whispered, "He is not just our president, he is one of us." Inside the hospital, the boys received medical care. No cameras were permitted, only doctors, nurses, and an abundance of love. There was no audience, just 2 chairs and a single powerful question that had yet to be asked. As the camera began to roll, Whoopi took a slow, deep breath. "Mr. President," she started gently, "what does power truly mean to you?" The question lingered in the evening air. Ibrahim looked at her, not as a man being interviewed, but as a father, a brother, a fellow human. "Power," he said deliberately, "is not defined by armies or speeches or titles. Power is what you choose to do when no one is looking. When the cameras are gone, when a child's life holds more value than your own personal safety." He paused. "I did not seek out a life in politics. Politics found me." Whoopi was quiet, her eyes glistening. "It means restoring hope to a father who had lost it. That is what real power is." A long, emotional silence settled between them. Then Whoopi whispered, "You have completely changed my understanding of leadership," and she reached out to hold his hand. The camera continued to record. No one dared to speak. That night, the interview was broadcast around the world. Clips of it saturated every online platform, not showing, shouting, or conflict, but quiet resolve and genuine love. In Burkina Faso, people lit candles in their homes. In Ghana, university students played the video in their classrooms. In the United States, tears were shed by strangers who had never even known Ibrahim Traoré's name before that day. Soulmane later composed a letter. "My son is home because you did not look away. I was a father drowning, and you gave me air to breathe again." Burkina Faso does not require a perfect man. We simply need a leader with a heart, and we have found one. By the end of the weekend, millions had seen the interview, and in a world filled with constant noise, one man's quiet actions had spoken more loudly than anything else. Dear viewer, if this story has resonated with you, even in a small way, I encourage you to like this video to help share this message of hope and authentic leadership. Please comment below and let us know which part moved you the most. Subscribe to this channel if you believe that the world is in need of more stories like this one. Let's continue to spread light in a world that is so desperately in need of it. Together, we can make stories like this one go viral, not just for the sake of views, but for the sake of change. Leave a comment if you're crying as well. Let's flood the comments with our love for humanity and for leaders like Ibrahim Traoré,